This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or for more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
My favorite era, and I believe the most compelling era of study in American history, is territorial Kansas, what became known worldwide as Bleeding Kansas. And Michelle has studied that as much or more than I have. She has often portrayed characters from that time, people who lived in Kansas during those tumultuous years. And she brings us a pretty heartbreaking but very important story from our past today. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Deb, and good morning to all our viewers. Springtime 1856 in territorial Kansas brought with it the renewal of life after a very harsh winter. For some residents living along the banks of Pottawatomie Creek, however, that spring meant death and sorrow. Today, let's learn more about the Pottawatomie Creek Massacre.
The evening of May 24, 1856 ended like usual for the men, women, and children living along the banks of Pottawatomie Creek in Franklin County. When darkness came and they settled in their beds, little could they know their lives would be forever altered. With his 5 sons and 3 supporters in tow, John Brown made his way along the creek looking for Dutch Henry's Crossing and the Sherman brothers, pro-slavery advocates, and others who supported the cause of slavery in the territory. Brown sought revenge for a pro-slavery raid on the Free State stronghold of Lawrence just weeks earlier. On this dark night, he would strike a blow against those he held responsible for the sack of Lawrence. When Brown's men rapped on the door of the Doyle family, farming folk from Tennessee who owned no slaves, they claimed to be with the Army of the North in search of information. When James Doyle answered the door, he and his sons William, Drury, and John were taken prisoner by Brown and his men. The impassioned pleas of Doyle's wife Mahala struck a chord with the men, and they spared her youngest son John. Soon after, Mahala heard gunfire and the sounds of men moaning and groaning. After visiting the Doyles, the group made their way to the cabin of Allen Wilkinson and his wife Louisa. The pitiful cries of Louisa, who was sick in bed with the measles, did not sway the men. They led her husband away. She never saw him alive again. Not finished, the men made their way to Dutch Henry's Crossing to the cabin of James Harris. There they interrogated a group of men, asking if they had participated on the raid in Lawrence. Brown did not find William Sherman's answers to be truthful. He was taken away, killed, and his body dumped in the creek. By dawn's light, Mahala Doyle discovered the bodies of her husband and sons. After gathering them for a proper burial, she packed up her children and their meager belongings and left their Kansas home. She and her son John would both testify about the events that took place on the banks of Pottawatomie Creek. She said that fear of myself and the remaining children induced me to leave the home where we had been living. We had improved our claim a little. I left all and went to the state of Missouri. Eventually, they returned to Tennessee. The events on the banks of Pottawatomie Creek showed how precarious life was for the victims of territorial political violence, and that women and children, regardless of their political views, were not immune to its ravages. When John Brown was captured after his ill-fated raid on Harper's Ferry in 1859, Mahala Doyle penned a letter to Brown and shared that her son John desired to be present at his hanging. While en route to see Brown hanged, a landslide blocked the path of his train, and he missed the execution.
I hope you enjoyed our look at territorial Kansas history, and that you'll join me for another historical adventure somewhere around Kansas.
Thank you for sharing your Wednesday morning with me. I'm Deb Goodrich, and I'll see you somewhere around Kansas.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
In 1821, a trade route was opened from Missouri in the United States across prairies and mountains to Mexico. In 2021, we will mark 200 years of epic conflicts and grand adventures, larger-than-life personalities, and sweeping landscapes. Join us on an historic journey. The Santa Fe Trail lives on.
Find us on social media or santafetrail.org.